other empiricism. And for those that are involved in career-wise, at technology companies and machine learning, we entertain personality typing, in testing what are the 13 kinds of chivalry that a machine learning engineer can engage in. What are some of your baseline performance on those? What are the things that can help you get to the next level? Same question for Marco Rubio. Same question for Amy Klobuchar. Same question for Joe Biden. We'd work with Joe Biden on it. Again, it's happens to be an apolitical thing of the Joe Biden brand, the Marco Rubio brand, the Amy Klobuchar brand, the Chris Sununu brand, happens to trace back, to natural law. There's natural differences between individuals on 13 kinds of chivalry. Those natural law, those personality traits are natural. That nature is lawful. Those laws are measurable. That's something we took the time to measure in our Atlantis 1, 2, and 3, Atlantis of the soul, Atlantis of biology, and Atlantis number 3 is both. We think that's fundamentally important. Is in leadership, is rewarding chivalry. That's a 50,000-year-old tradition. Not everybody knows that the horse is really American. The horse is from here. The horse is ours. That some time ago, hunters came into America from the Bering Strait, we'd say, through Beringia. It was a land bridge. And we're such prolific hunters, they hunted the horse to extinction here. Some of the relatives of that horse were able to escape out Beringia and down through Siberia into the outstretched hands of my ancestor and many of yours, who was the first knight, who said, "What did they do to you, girl?" And that is the birth of the movement of chivalry. That's the origin of it. And there was a tribe that did that. There was a language for that tribe. In the modern lexicon, if you looked at what language is closest to the tribe that domesticated the horse, it's Lithuanian. The Lithuanians have an ancient word called equos, which is such an old word it's like the horse's name for themselves, as we like to say. That's the tradition of chivalry that has existed. It existed in Lithuania before 1905. It existed in Russia before 1917. We know that tradition is here. We know the horse is really American. The horse is ours. The horse is from here. That's one of the things we believe in the Serenity Yvonne College of Knights. In the Kent English tradition, we believe that we can rule it better. And so we invite you folks, as part of this Lead and Expect, on human design that hypothesizes, supposes, and thinks. Because there were individuals that looked at that magnificent animal and killed it. There was a different tribe that looked at that magnificent animal, that looked at the horse and said, I can have that thing do work for me. I can train that horse. I could ride that horse. And that is the tribe that has decided everything in human affairs for the last 50,000 years. Because it's the tribe that, as you look back, that decided who would get an empire of horses, who would get one, and who would get none. And made those decisions largely on the basis of chivalry and that movement of knighthood. We know, because if you look back, in the Valley of Kings in Egypt, there's one peculiar character there that you'd call Pharaoh Yuya, of which you look at Pharaoh Yuya in the Valley of Kings. He's a Lithuanian. He's ethnically a Lithuanian guy. If you saw him, as an American, if you look at him, you'd be like, he looks like he's from Minnesota. It's like that was a pharaoh of Egypt. How did that happen? Well, as it turned out, he was a shepherd boy from Europe who rose to be the master of the horse in Egypt. He brought the horse to Egypt and freed people of backbreaking work and said, you know what, the horse can do that work for you. Really? Yeah, we have horses. Like back home, we have tons of horses. We'd have horses come here and do that work for you. And he rose to be Pharaoh Yuya, of which the ancient Jagfetic word, Yuya, in English we say Yuya because that's how it's spelled. But in the ancient Jagfetic language, the language of Equos, the language of the first knight, you would call it Ionis. Many scholars have looked at that individual Ionis and said, that might be John the Baptist. It probably is. Um, it would make sense if John the Baptist, John the Evangelist, was also John of Patmos. It would make sense if you saw a horse shepherd in a Valley of Kings in Egypt. Maybe that guy wasn't just the master of the horse. Maybe that guy might be John, as you say, in English, in the ancient language, of which there were multiple ways of writing the same word. As a scientist, I say, null hypothesis, maybe it wasn't. You'd have to say null hypothesis, like, Pharaoh Yuya. I mean, it says right in hieroglyphics, he was master of the horse. He's buried in the Valley of Kings. He happens to be Jagfetic. There's review on his genetics. But, the semantics on whether Pharaoh Yuya was the shepherd that rose to be Pharaoh of Egypt and rose to be the master of the horse, is the area of editorializing. The possibility that 3,400 years ago a horse shepherd brought the horse and brought chivalry to Egypt is empowering thought. That happens to be a romantic thought. It happens to be an editorial thought, not a journalistic thought. And it, again, helps us point the way, though, on what chivalry could be and what chivalry could become for Americans. Is that there is this ancient tradition of horse shepherds and of chivalry. And that we know that John of Patmos was one. And there's an open debate on if John of Patmos was two people or more. And what John of Patmos was in his natural life. Of which one hypothesis is, well, you'd say probably wasn't a horse shepherd, even though he wrote, of horse shepherds. And to reject that hypothesis, you need a lot more data than we have. And that's us wandering into the matter of faith. There's 103 shepherd traditions. One of them is going to conclude that Pharaoh Yuya, was John the Baptist, was John of Patmos, that he brought the horse to Egypt, and that he tried to hand the baton to Jesus in the New Testament. And, there can be, 102 traditions or fewer, 65 traditions or fewer, that won't believe that, and that's okay. That's the marketplace of ideas. But fundamentally, expect is that human design that hypothesizes, supposes, and thinks. And I'm showing the example because we launched from really rock-ribbed science into the areas of faith, of which my own editorial standard was to make the self-disclosure clear and to offer the options. Because consumers deserve better options than what we have. Expect used to mean await. That meaning is now archaic, which is symbolically appropriate. Expect leaders have a sense of urgency that expectations cannot wait. Expect is an intransitive verb, as in expect is extending the life expectancy for all the children of all Americans for all of time. Leading expect measures life expectancy in seconds, which as a unit enters the millions, billions, and trillions within human lifespan. This is a crucial difference from other kinds of quality management that see people as defective or see people as defects. Expect is to look forward, leaving it better for the next generation. That's a fundamentally expect philosophy. It's a fundamentally American philosophy. It's a fundamentally leading American philosophy. A fundamentally leading expect philosophy. Expect is also means to be pregnant, to await coming birth. And, that is part of the leading expect movement. That's why we think that it's important, is it has the right connotations and meanings. There's a baby, waiting to be born later today. And we want that child to be born with a higher life expectancy than a child that was born yesterday. And that's a fundamental reshift in tradition that will feel familiar and will feel American again. Because we've done it before. We doubled life expectancy in 100 years. We can do it again. Expect is a leadership of human ability. See, expect is a leadership philosophy of human ability. It's so critical because our medical sects are trained in entropies, in disease, and not in human ability. And that's one of the reasons why when our media reaches out to physicians, the physician is looking for a positive test for disease. As opposed to, my profession is one that's inherently hopeful. Healthcare administrators, we happen to be the top, The Minnesota graduates in healthcare administration happen to be the best in the world at it. Like I'll humbly say, pretty well studied on quality and finance. Some of us happen to be peer reviewed. I happen to be in that as well, as a peer reviewed medical scientist who is also a healthcare administrator from the best program in the world. I'm humbled in saying that, but we don't have to be humble. False humility from folks that understand health policy isn't what's going to change the world forever for the better. I happen to be moved by that. As part of what moved me to write the book is to influence positive change. But my profession is more the profession of human ability, of telling people what they are able to do, what possibilities there are, if they're properly motivated. Expect is the human-to-human interface. Expect is a goal for framing how we function, and expect is functioning how we framed, as part of my RAFT acronym, which is the bare minimum expectation for every frontline employee in medical practices that we think can be the bare minimum expectation at Google, at Yahoo, at Facebook, at Bing. We're happy to train your folks on what's worked inside medicine on increasing life expectancy, because we know that technology companies unintentionally, accidentally, you didn't set out to try to look like you guys were a medical practice, but you're involved in a lot of activities that require media dissemination, from a medical science professional. I'm happy to do that. I'm willing to do that, and get us back to perfecting the brand of American medicine. Expect is a vision or bet for the framing of expectations and function as framed, including with the employee injury. Which, again, if you do a search on an injury on a search engine, it does not provide an option for an acute injury clinic, of which I've set up acute injury clinics all over America. I happen to be in New Hampshire. I know there's an acute injury clinic that's staffed by residency and board certified and fellowship trained orthopedic surgeons that are subspecialized, which is the Kent English tradition, and do an exceptional job of it. And if you search that, the acute injury clinic options, of which imagine there's 2, 3, 4 options, aren't listed in a web search, but must. And that imperative is so critical in building a healthcare system that's high quality and affordable. There are professionals that have built programs and systems that increase quality and reduce cost, and we can't get through. I can speak for my own self that I was able to implement that. We have it in New Hampshire, it's in Minnesota, it's in Nevada, and it's all over America. And yet the physicians that took the gamble to do that, they have to be rewarded through word of mouth, because it's not something that's in their insurance plan. It's not something that they're not that you want the opinion of insurance companies on it. And so we're asking for your help to help our acute injury clinics in the Kent English tradition that specify disease states in straight English. How and where you can get in today for work-related injury. That goes for you, at Bing, at Yahoo, at Google, that are injured at work. There's places that you could get in today. I'm happy to, help consult and offer those services, everywhere your employees are, because you guys are paying too much for healthcare. And that happens to be important. In the field of engineering, for example, you might have good benefits. There's a portion of your salary that's withheld because the cost of healthcare at your organizations, and that healthcare cost can be contained, and it can be more fair. If you have a philosophy of injured workers getting seen today, that's inherently defensible. Having people seen today by a physician is more affordable than going to a hospital. And we want to be a part of that change and a part of that solution in every state, every town, every village in America. That's what we do at Kent English. Some of you can help evangelize it. Some of you can even enroll in the Serenity Bond College of Knights as we layer a new profession over all of America to run it right. Expect is that leadership of human ability, where the line between medicine and public health is basically medical doctors will focus on entropies on illness, on disease, and often do not claim to be involved in human ability, in super ability, in natural ability, in unnatural ability. Except when you discuss the Olympics movement. And then physicians that are involved in the Olympics movement or have been understand what we're talking about when we're talking about human ability. And, we're looking for United States governors to become superhuman, to perform on reversing the ebb in life expectancy in light of many of them being reading lawyers and having no empirical training of any kind or very little. And, we'll work with you. We know in the Kent English tradition that Josiah Bartlett was the governor of New Hampshire that signed the Declaration of Independence and said, that the Redcoats, no way, not here. You can't put admiralty courts in towns and villages here. I'm a physician, but Josiah Bartlett's like, I'll pick up a rifle. Because he's fundamentally against the idea of the Stamp Act and other movements by King George III that were fundamentally un-American. And so we know that physician law was there at our founding. We know that natural law, medical science law were there at our founding. We know Benjamin Franklin was there in Pennsylvania. We know that there are natural law medical scientists. That's part of the 103 traditions of law in America. And we're a part of elevating those other legal sects that practice, not just practice law, but OP law. You know what I mean? When do you go from practicing law to OP law? Well, do the right things for the right reason. Is that what the profession does? It doesn't, so we can start over with oaths, because we think that oaths are fundamentally more binding on professionals. Expect is that vision or a bet of framing the expectations and functioning as if framed. And it's a fundamental change. So for those of you that are trained in machine learning, I can't express to you how machine learning has, unbeknownst to you, wittingly or unwittingly, involved in decreasing life expectancy for Americans, and how you need to throw your hands up and stop where your public health, physiology, and medical science training ends. And we're willing to help. Willing to help, from a medical science perspective, willing to help as a journalist, willing to help as an editor. Because we know that the rise in machine learning has caused our life expectancy to decrease in concrete and fundamental ways. We know that we need a new generation of knights with new ideas to help overcome that. Leadership is about the organization's mission, vision, and values. The culture of quality leadership reduces firefighting by increasing the marathon of efforts to prevent distress in patients, prevent distress in their professionals, and in their community. And I can't express, with our experiment of 10 STEM, we'd happily partner with Yahoo on our 10 STEM package in the Kent English tradition. We'd partner with Bing on it. We'd partner with Google on it. We'd partner with Facebook on it. We know that the Kent English tradition of using straightforward English, using the top of the cast medical scientists and physicians in disseminating knowledge, news, medical services, is fundamentally superior to how the internet is working today. And again, like the advancement of smartphone applications is also implicated over the period of time where you see life expectancy declining. That means that the algorithms in totality, not individually, but in totality, are involved, are implicated. It's an important enough thing for that to be a hypothesis that's tested. And there's signs of that. Which again, we'll talk with executives at those and policymakers and U.S. governors off camera on policy making, because the stakes are too high to do nothing. Local mission. Lead and Expect is about the mission of the heroic work that you do every single day. Lead and Expect is the big how for why we do things. What is your brand's mission? That's one of the best, whether we're talking to a medical group, we're talking to employees of a U.S. governor, we're talking to technology employees. That question of what is your mission is such a clear thing, for me as someone as an outsider of how the organization is performing. Mission is so clear in organizations that have it and is so missing in organizations that don't. And so that question is, what is your mission? At the employee level should be clear. Collecting surveys on that is something that we've done in multiple organizations with much success. We'd be happy to do that for any physician in America, any hospital in America, any U.S. government in America, and for any technology company in America. We know that having a clearly articulated mission that is affirmative, and like Sergey Brin and Larry Page have been more responsible, arguably, than one or more of their peers. And part of what's helped them get there is elevating an adage to mission that is don't be evil, basically, which is it's good. It makes the same error that a physician does, and instead of looking to the affirmative ability, that it is pointing to a do not or shall not. And you guys are smart and can take the next step in articulating a mission. And I'd love to be a part of that. I know that our organization, 10STEM, in the Ken English tradition, can be remarkably successful for Americans in increasing life expectancy, and also for Google, because it's a huge area of weakness in the organization. Is where the organization touches medical professionals. Local vision. Lead and Expect meets your vision. What is your organization's vision? Mission and vision are so critical, and for those of us that lived through the the .com boom of the late '90s, there was a cynicism that came in at the end, where the mission and vision couldn't be articulated by everyday employees. That's a critical component of corporate governance in technology companies, in governors' offices and medical practices in hospitals all over America, in elevating these new oaths of saying, to work at our medical office, to work at our hospital, to work, for the state government, to work for this technology company, you have to partake in one of these 4 medical oaths. We think that happens to be really useful. The Hippocratic Oath is a good thing. It's still prioritized, and you stay within your scope of training. We know that'll be hugely successful because some of the highest quality, highest performing individuals, highest value folks in America's system are medical assistants that might be making $15 to $20 an hour, but they're functioning at the elbow of a physician under an oath, where they know what's physician work, what's physician authorized work, and what is non-physician authorized work, and that same 3 paths in an algorithm needs to be done for every engineer, at every technology company, every health and human services employee of every U.S. governor, and everybody in the 4th branch. And it's normal in medical practice. Physicians are doing it right. Physicians bring in an expert like me to help their staff be more obedient to their physician and to their rules and to medical science rules, which is one of the things that works. Medical science works and works every time. That's what we believe that Lead and Expect. And so we embark for this vision of Lead and Expect, for this search for the fountain of youth. This is how we get there. For this abridging of knowledge and the search for truth, because there is a new hope for abundance, for years of life to be won, and value is individual at the sample size of 1. That means every single one of you. Every single healthcare professional that clicks like or shares this video, every engineer that clicks like or shares this video with your United States governor, encourages them to watch it and be a part of it. We want all 50 United States governors to be a part of Lead and Expect, the American quality improvement system for not just machine learning, but suspect a system that has a human heuristic for decision making rooted in medical science, that reintroduces the peer review system, that reintroduces an editorial standard, reintroduces journalistic standard. For medical science like machines, astronomy, or topological bridging has no mind of its own. It relies on you and me and us to explore what will increase life expectancy. The things that will increase life expectancy for the one are going to be discovered in our exploration of what's decreased life expectancy for the many. Where the Hippocratic movement has not moved in one direction, nor have we progressed when left to chance or left to the aloof, nor has it profited from guessing when there's evidence and proof. Where across populations, you and me, life expectancy is proven vulnerable. Death, too, is partially reversible within limits. The chest compressions and AEDs of lifeguards, of paramedics, are fundamentally the same life-saving medical science that a physician might provide at a hospital, and yet, reducing the need for the emergency firefighter system, instead having a preventative system that prevents the need for emergency care, is part of what gets us there. That gets us down to health state, health ability. So to fire trucks and ambulances, transplants, to putting new hips and knees on people, we invite you to join the Leading Expect movement. We have only begun peeling away the onion of the reversibility of injury, disease, disability. A medical science of administration can be explored and ordered for what the patient expects without repeating the mistakes that humankind has made in the past. If you look at the life expectancy differences between the United States, we've invited 5 governors to come on camera and speak with us about their state that's performed well. We think that there's lessons to be learned from those that are in the field that are performing well. And Leading Expect is this calling and harvesting of good ideas from places in looking at how and where do the leadership assign credit. Who deserves the credit? And again, we invite physicians to come and comment on that as well. America from the start was an incubator of the medical science of life, liberty, and happiness. I fundamentally believe that those are maxim. I believe that those are an important oath. I think they're basically in the right order, that it's life, liberty, happiness. When you see life expectancy decreasing, we need to tighten up elsewhere, because the system of increasing life expectancy is many things, including part of the source of our credibility overseas. And we think that there's institutions in America that'll be implicated in decreasing life expectancy. And so that happens to be a very difficult discussion. It's a public policy discussion, but we know that we're strong enough as a people to have that discussion. I'm of the belief that 50 out of 50 United States governors can get it right. The hazards of life, liberty, the hazards to life, liberty, and happiness are well known. They're empirically measured. It isn't really something of debate. We have a Centers for Disease Control. We have excellent data. That data needs to be managed. We need to have folks that are accountable to it. This conquest draws on the best of humankind, the best of human ability. We invite you to join us. And so some say, why Leading Expect? Why perfecting the brand of American medicine? Why choose perfecting expect as our goal? Well, without human design, these technologies and entities have no soul. The technology we've invented does not have a soul, doesn't have a mind of its own. It requires us to guide it. Without heroes, without role models, we have no role. And so having heroes, role models, mentors, coaches in Lead and Expect, in the old heraldry tradition, the old Kent English tradition, is part of how we intend to do it. We know that the Serenity Von College of Knights is one of the most formal, clear ways we can do that. We know that through a board of directors work, we've been successful on moving physician groups to Lead and Expect. We know that same model can work at Google, at Yahoo, at Bing. We'd be willing to offer a first mover advantage to those that are more responsive. That's something we offer to physicians that happen to be successful. Physicians that are first movers in Lead and Expect have been more successful than those that weren't. Evidenced by market share, evidenced by the number of physician partners. So join me at Lead and Expect on this journey to perfect the brand of American medicine. We can no longer be defects to each other. Homo sapiens are not defects. Where it is the cold, dark systems that we have to hold suspect. Without the leaders of Expect envisioning a human-centered design for every American and every child in every hospital for all of time, we leave it to chance. And we're not, we don't find it acceptable leaving these things to chance. We don't find it acceptable leaving machine learning to chance. Because what stitches patterns we leave to chance or guesswork made to stress or din or sin. The wires, lights, and factory din like unhuman bots howling out in a cavernous box. And, without Homo sapien insight, all the technology that we've made are just lights in a box. We Lead Expect not because nature is simple, but because it is complex. Because if we choose not to work for machines, the machines can work for us. Because if we choose to win, we cannot fail. We fundamentally believe that the machines should work for us. The machines should work for Americans. We fundamentally disagree with the idea that Americans should work for the machines. For my friends, that are United States governors, that are, engineers at technology companies, this has been a fundamental error. Is we let Homo sapiens start working for machines. We start having Americans working for machines. That's fundamentally unacceptable for anybody that believes in this thing that's America. And it's time that every one of us joins together to push back, because the machines should work for us. The machines should work for America. We Lead Expect not because nature is simple, but because it's complex. And because machines should work for us. That goal sets sail on an adventure to ensure the best of our angels, energies, and skill respects each and every life, each and every liberty, and every last freedom of will, relying on Lead and Expect. Eureka, Excelsior, prevail. Those exclamations are what we believe in Lead and Expect. Because, our, life, liberty, happiness are in that order. And again, if there's people that are 72 degrees today that weren't yesterday, and they're dying months or years earlier than they would have 10 years ago, we need to frickin' figure this out. There's very clear, distinct root causes of it. At Kent English, we're offering solutions to it. We're offering to, help market participants, United States governors, U.S. senators, on focus energy and attention on good policy built on natural law, as a policy built on medical science law, and not policy predicated on opinion. Leadership is a science. Neurology, for example, is described as a field of disorders that which could be better described as like neurodisability. The taxonomy of medical specialties curiously excludes the medical science of ability. Orthopedics is unique, especially because of sports medicine, for example. In the Olympic tradition, includes the order of athletic performance, of biomechanical ability, appended to the disorders of the musculoskeletal system. Disability, injury, disease. And so this issue of leadership is a science, leadership is an ability, happens to be an old story of having the right individuals, those that are elected officials, embrace leadership as a science, leadership as an oath, and as part of this neurology of human ability. Because we know that we accomplished more in the 10 years prior to 2014 in life expectancy than we accomplished in the last 10 years since. We fundamentally know that getting back to what was working in 2004 and in 1994 isn't a political issue, it's a public policy issue. It's a technology issue. It's a human ability issue. And it's a leadership issue. And as I explained the example of Andrew Carnegie, if you look back 100 years to what was done in 1910, you get one of the clearest expectations that changed, which is, like we said, with Enron, with WorldCom, and with Arthur Andersen, where are these poor performing individuals coming from, and let's shut those programs down. Because you're going to find that we shut down 2/3 of America's medical schools in 1910 so that our state of medicine would be the best in the world. And that system bounced around for over 100 years. We doubled life expectancy, and we got, with medical science not controlling the whole American political system, as far as we're going to get. And so now you have to look at who's been in control. And Bar Association attorneys have had unprecedented power and authority and have absolutely no training in empiricism and absolutely no training in medical science, have no training in medical law. And 2/3 of the Bar Association law programs need to be shut down. We can do it in the next 7 years. And we'll look at who are the lawyers at Enron, at WorldCom, at Arthur Andersen that said yes, and shut those programs down. And go and look at those programs, look at the curriculum. What are you teaching about actuarial science? What are you teaching about empiricism? What are you teaching about machine learning and the human heuristics of public policy? Because we don't need any reading lawyers in America. It wasn't, measuring the cleanliness of the floor in the barbershops in 1910 that spontaneously created medicine. It was looking at who's engaged in poor practice and shut those things down. And, for Bar Association attorneys, again, in the state of New York, if you explained that you can't pour cement in New York unless you go to one of our, Bar Association academies, and, you can't train another person on pouring cement unless you, are one of our accredited cement pouring law schools, and then said that you have to pass the test for the bar in New York to be able to pour cement, you'd realize that it's a RICO fraud in plain sight. There's absolutely no training in medical science anywhere. But the law, the Bar Association is self-accrediting, is self-licensing, has been testing its own members. There's not a physician or a scientist that's been spontaneously added as a Bar Association member or invited in on the review. And we can start delivering the bodies of the opioid epidemic to the Bar Association, because that's where the postmortem belongs. The people that are dying of tobacco, we can deliver those autopsies to the Bar Associations in the states where they belong, because those are the people that are engaged in malpractice. We've gone back and sued tobacco companies again and again and again. The tobacco is coming from inside America. It's being grown in Kentucky, in Tennessee, in Virginia, and North Carolina. There's not some foreign power that's killing Americans early. It's supposed agricultural producers in 4 states. And 480,000 Americans die of tobacco every single year. If you had a warlord in Uzbekistan that was, killing 480,000 Americans every year by selling tobacco to us, you'd say, give me the U.S. Marine Corps. You'd dial them. If the Bar Association in Tennessee was the actual reason, why don't you do the same? Because, again, 480,000 Americans are dying every year because the Bar Associations in Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia, and North Carolina have shrugged their shoulders and said, tobacco crop? Well, it kills people every year. Should we do away with it? Well, they have no morals of any kind. There's no oath of any kind. Like the time for a great reckoning is here. Those are 4 states that all the rest of us are worse off. That those 4 states have any agricultural production of any kind, much less tobacco. And so, and that's based on the evidence. I'm editorializing based on the evidence. And, I'm giving a political position because fundamentally, I'm of the belief that the technology companies will listen to the analogy and will make the connections that tobacco really is killing 488,000 Americans. Fact. The tobacco is being grown in America. Fact. It is being grown in 4 states. Fact. If bar association attorneys were held to the Hippocratic Oath, they'd be disbarred. You would literally start over, and you'd put new people in charge of those 4 states. That's what we did at the end of the Civil War. The Civil War was a hard-fought war over principles like tobacco. Is fundamentally comparable. I think it's a fair analogy because I think that there are 46 states that are basically unwittingly still at war with Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, North Carolina, and don't know it. But when you look at the public health data, well, those 4 states are killing people in other states, wittingly, unwittingly, in violation of the Hippocratic Oath. And we know that Google would not allow Kentucky and Tennessee to do that. Yahoo wouldn't. We know that Bing wouldn't. We know that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation wouldn't. They're funding public health crises elsewhere in the world. Help us replace the cynical, listless, missionless, visionless, unoathed Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, North Carolina bar associations with something better. For 3 of those states, we can say in all confidence, we won the Civil War. The Bar Association was a race-baiting organization to try to deprive folks of getting, passing the bar. The history of the Bar Association in Tennessee, Virginia, and North Carolina has been a racist, race-baiting organization. They should all be replaced. They can't self-accredit anymore. There's no reason that the Bar Association earned a privilege in self-accrediting attorneys inside those states as a result of the Civil War. The bar associations don't go back before 1878. I'm certain, I have pictures of Abraham Lincoln's kids from, Dr. Martha Berry Spalding, who's one of America's first physicians. She happened to be, her husband was a Methodist minister in Iowa. They sent boys from Mount Pleasant, Iowa, into the Civil War on the side of the Union to keep Virginia, North Carolina, and Tennessee's tobacco-funded system from oppressing the rest of us. We're pretty sure we won that war. We're pretty sure that North Carolina, Virginia, and Tennessee lost the ability to accredit their own lawyers. We're pretty sure that the tobacco litigation by Mike Cerisi, in Minnesota and other tobacco lawsuits are evidence that those 3 states violated their oath, that they unconditionally surrendered to the North, and that we can start over and promote oath professionals to run those states. Because if you're going to have a bar association, self-accredit, then they're going to all fail together. It's possible that you'd have individuals emerge from those states to be responsible adults, and we invite the governors to come on and speak to how your tobacco crop has killed 480,000 Americans every year and what you're doing about it. Because I had the experience of the United States Department of Agriculture taking my ancestors' home and library where they lived next door to Abraham Lincoln. We fought and won the Civil War. And yet the United States Department of Agriculture took the home away just in the last 6 months of my ancestor. It's the library at Iowa Wesleyan University, and federalized it. And so, if they're federalizing Abraham Lincoln's neighborhoods' homes, where I was able to rescue the photo album that includes photos of Abraham Lincoln from falling into some other hands other than the private folks that own that land, explain why Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, and North Carolina can have a tobacco crop. Explain why Health and Human Services doesn't pass an executive order and say, well, you can't grow tobacco and sell it to Americans and think you're going to get away with it. You can't brand that tobacco to Americans and think you're going to get away with it. We won a civil war over that. It's a touchy thing for those of us that sent ancestors. We sent Abraham Lincoln off to West Point from Mount Pleasant and said, go win the war, Abe. We thought that was a pretty important exercise in civics. And we didn't fight the Civil War for a bar association to self-accredit non-medical scientists and non-natural law who didn't even read Principia to self-govern. That was fundamentally not the option, not the solution. And again, why has it become Civil War politics? Because perfecting the brand of American medicine is confronting a small number of entropies. Tobacco is one of them. The tobacco in America comes from 3 or 4 states that have almost entirely been run by bar association attorneys who, like in their executive orders and in their budgeting, look at the tobacco crop flowing through and shrug their shoulders. And have shrugged their shoulders, as we'd say, since 1860. And we're pretty sure that the Union Army won the Civil War, and that it's time for Virginia to capitulate and give up your tobacco crop, and for North Carolina to give up its tobacco crop, and for Tennessee to give up its tobacco crop. The racist, race-baiting, tobacco-funded Confederate Army was the loser of the Civil War. Show me, I'll do like, habeas Confederacy. Show me the Bar Association didn't prop up after the vestiges of racism in the South from before the Civil War were thrown down. The Bar Association originates from the Confederacy. It's fundamentally un-American. It's a part of the American system that isn't working. It's a part of the American system that isn't extending life expectancy, isn't even trained to do so. And so, I invite all of you to enroll at the Stern Yvonne College of Knights. We're going to graduate, another legal sect that's based in medicine and medical science and natural law, and run things the way that our founders intended. I invite Chris Sununu to join us. Like I said, we invite Amy Klobuchar to join us. We invite Marco Rubio to join us. We invite Sergey Brin to join us. We invite Larry Page to join us. We invite Bill and Melinda Gates to join us. We applaud your nation building overseas. We invite and welcome you to join nation building here at home. Chapter 7 of Perfecting the Brand of American Medicine. My grandfather, Frank Batulis, was the quality inspector for the Elmira, New York fire engine factory. It's called American LaFrance. He built the modern fire truck. He was a part of a movement of life-saving that moved whole casts and all over America towards being able to get a gasoline engine truck with a ladder, with water, with a hose, to the site of a fire and put it out safely, to get all the occupants out and to safely put the fire out before it burns out. And to even build a brigade of fire chiefs that looked at preventing fire. Some of the most successful public health in the last 100 years has been work directly tied to my grandfather Frank Batulis. You won't find a statue of him anywhere in Elmira or in Albany or in Washington, D.C., and yet he's the inventor of the modern fire truck. These are the sort of things that made America great. They're the sort of things that were working up until 2014. And if you look at our poor towns and villages, in the last, what have they done in the last 10 years with their paramedics? Paramedics are treating opioid addicts because the National Institute of Medicine mandated physicians and said you must screen community patients for pain and prescribe pain. To which, I'm a medical scientist in pharmacology, in biochemistry. I'm a peer-reviewed scientist in, pharmacology. When those accreditors came to me, called the Joint Commission, came to my primary care clinics and tried to say we have to screen community candidates for pain, I said that's outrageous. I totally reject it. That's absolute malpractice. You don't screen people in the community for pain. And they had a mandated 10-step scale of basically how drunk somebody looks, and said we should be educating patients on, every primary care visit, how much pain are you in? As if Americans are too dumb to explain to their doctor that they're in pain. Because Americans aren't dumb. There wasn't a problem of Americans not being able to describe their pain to physicians. There is a liturgy issue where physicians are trained in Latin in their practice of medicine, and the community is trained in English, which is, that's why I joined the Ken English tradition of, helping provide medical services through search engine optimization to our partner physicians. Because the Institute of Medicine got it wrong. The Institute of Medicine said, screen every single patient. The Joint Commission got it wrong. The Joint Commission said, for 20 years, screen patients for pain in the community. It's the source of the opioid epidemic. I was a person that said no. When the Joint Commission came to my clinics, I said flat no. We're absolutely not going to screen people for pain. And basically the Joint Commission capitulated after years of continuing to mandate it elsewhere. And the Joint Commission doesn't need to exist anymore. For those that are looking at what the necessary reforms are, the opioid epidemic originates from the Institute of Medicine, which has to be totally reworked, which is a bummer. And the Joint Commission has to be totally decertified and defunded and shut down. Ernest Codman was a Harvard-trained physician, trained in the Ken English tradition at my ancestors' alma mater at Harvard University, who's the founder of the outcomes movement with physicians in America, and he came up with the origin of the Joint Commission and other trade associations. And we're going to take those associations back. We're taking those medical science entities back because the Joint Commission did a horrible job. For those of you that are familiar with the Joint Commission is the source of the opioid epidemic. It was their pain scales. The Joint Commission needs to give all of its money back to providers that paid for accreditation, and needs to be liquidated, because they made unforgivable errors that are just like page 101 in public health, which is do no harm. Okay, well, don't screen community patients for pain, because that's everybody in public health that studied in it. I happen to come from a reputable program. I happen to be a peer-reviewed scientist. Screening a community population causes harm. There's not a way to do screening without causing harm. The harm caused by the opioid epidemic is caused by the Joint Commission. And the Joint Commission is, an accrediting organization that says it supposedly accredits quality, of which, how could that possibly be if the opioid epidemic traces back to them mandating pain? And administrators like me, where they came to and said, well, you have to screen people for pain. And I'm like, where does the literature say we should screen people for pain? I haven't seen this problem that people in the community are writhing in pain. It doesn't seem like something that I've read anywhere. And they don't have any evidence, and didn't have any evidence. And there is a sect of people that are in PACUs, post-surgical care, that need to be screened for pain because they're just coming out of surgery, which I was a part of that movement. And I was a evangelist of the day surgery movement of moving inpatient volume to outpatient volume, which that was something that hospitals physicians made less money. Those of us that were evangelists of that had to go against the financial best interests of our organizations. And me, I had a zeal in it as doing what's right is what's so clear. And I added to it, being a part of the low dose, no dose narcotics prescribing, anesthesia prescribing movement, which was getting all of the general anesthesia out of surgery. At Mass General, the origin of anesthesia is in the ether dome, and the kinds of anesthesia, analgesia that's been used has changed over time. And I recognize that a patient that's coming in for a hip replacement doesn't need to have their gut shut down with general anesthesia. That was something I recognized back in 2008. And I worked with high quality surgeons that were on staff, to implement low dose and no dose orthopedic surgeries that, again, stared, right into the Joint Commission that was saying that we should be screening everybody for pain and prescribing more pain medication. And, I was saying, the patient doesn't need their gut shut down for anesthesia. The evidence of, why would you shut down a patient's stomach if, they're having an orthopedic surgery? Like, it isn't the place of injury. It never was. And my work in that realm in day surgery has been peer-reviewed. It's been disseminated at multiple, trade industries. And it's, one of the, origins of the day surgery movement of, low dose, no dose narcotics. And, that, for me, I'm proud to be able to list that as an accomplishment for the fourth branch of American government, and for JACO. What an embarrassment, because you guys had a 20-year-old executive taking you to town now for 20 years. And it took 20 years for JACO to finally capitulate and say, well, you don't actually have to shut down somebody's gut to do surgery. No kidding. Welcome to 2008. I could have told you that in 2008. Craig Cummins, in Barrington, Illinois, could have told you that in 2008. There are evangelists of that style of surgery that is do no harm that we were doing in 2008. We didn't need the federal government to mandate it. In fact, we were fighting against federal mandates. The federal mandates were wrong. And the opioid epidemic traces back to, a fundamental misunderstanding of what's pain, where's pain, what setting is appropriate for screening for pain, what harm is done by screening for pain. And, I elaborate on it later in the book, Perfecting the Brand of American Medicine, because I've been enlisted multiple times in diversion prevention activities from pharmacy wholesalers, physician groups, hospitals, because, I happen to be a medical scientist that knows, how to organize controlled substances. I happen to do diversion prevention in an academic environment where, I've been successful. My physicians have been successful. I happily share the system. Physicians are good people. They come to work to do a good job. If a physician can tell a patient, my administrator won't let you cut that prescription or cut that dose for that painkiller, it gives them one more reason to say it. It gives them one more reason to do the right thing. It's a rare example where, the administrator is the authority. That's not a mandate that I have. That's a conversational style that some physicians have used for physicians that are real conservative on pain prescribing. And those are some of the heroes out there that you hardly hear the story of. And that's, for me, when I get up in the morning, I'm excited about working with physicians that want patients to, that go into surgery to be relieved of pain and relieved of suffering. And, to get the, opioids, out of our communities. It's a battle that can be won. Part of my method comes from my grandfather, Frank Petoulas, who invented the modern fire truck. It's the most significant life-saving device in mass that we have. If you can imagine what it's like having a fire truck coming at you from the perspective of a building that's on fire. The fire truck is a worst nightmare for fire. Now, I'm anthropomorphizing a little bit, but that, you have to know before 1957, there wasn't a modern fire truck that could reliably get to the source of fire. And he sold it to, I mean, thousands. Their sales were like 1,700 a year. If you look at how many American firehouses originate from 1957 on with the American LaFronts, because you could have a firehouse. The whole idea of putting a door that opened at the firehouse was you had a truck that you could roll in there. And that whole procedure of having the truck backed in traced back to the engineering of the freaking truck, that it had a business end that went straight into the building fire. Something that I'm proud of. That was part of the origin of the Lead and Expect movement, is to the chief quality inspector of the American LaFronts fire engine factory in Elmira, New York, Frank Batulis. As America's quality system traces back to that. There's other influences in it, including Earl Bakken. I happen to work in the research lab where Medtronic was founded, where we did some pretty leading edge stuff, and had a tradition of excellence in peer-reviewed science. Earl Bakken literally invented the frickin' pacemaker, put it in a dog on Monday, and then on Tuesday put it in a Homo sapien. It's one of the more remarkable stories. He didn't need, Dwight Eisenhower to sign an executive order for him to do that. The government was simpler. Part of the success story of the pacemaker traces back to a good physician, a good engineer, at a good university. And that's the story of medical science, that it increased our life expectancy, is using those tools of Lead and Expect. Frank Batulis, and again, at the end of the month, Frank Batulis went over the paces with this, the chief financial officer, of what fire trucks could roll. Because the CFO said, well, I want the revenue from this truck, that truck, and that truck. And Frank Batulis would stay there like literally till midnight, to be able to book which trucks were rolling, which trucks would get there. Because, for him, the chief financial officer didn't understand that a truck that isn't able to reliably save lives isn't ultimately going to make us money. Because we're going to pay for it in service, we're going to pay for it in repairs, if you have to recall it, or if they decide, that they don't want the truck because of that defect, because of that error. And so, you can't do quality on Monday and finance on Tuesday. You can put a pacemaker in a dog on Monday and put in a separate one in a Homo sapien on Tuesday. That's called Medtronic. And again, we're talking about Lead and Expect, the tradition of increasing life expectancy in America. In my book, it's a 3-book set, Perfecting the Brand of American Medicine. Book 2 is Lead and Expect, which that's what we're talking about, is the quality improvement methodology that's helped mark the upward trend of mankind, that's helped extend life expectancy for America and for Americans. Lead and Expect is medical science. When and where the medical science evidence for improving human life expectancy changes, so too does Lead and Expect change. See, the Lead and Expect is not is not grounded in a faith, is not grounded in a doctrine. Lead and Expect is fundamentally medical science oriented. It's fundamentally rooted not just in Sir Francis Bacon's Baconian method, but rooted in the SUSPECT acronym that I happen to have innovated, that's proven hugely successful on inserting human heuristics, particularly to machine algorithms, which is an issue that we do in medicine. That's been key to what I've done in my profession, because the medical literature includes algorithms that are hard-won medical algorithms, and in practice, adding human heuristics to have those algorithms work best for the physician and the patient is part of what I've done professionally. It's part of the work that needs to be done by every United States governor, by Google, Yahoo, Bing, and Facebook. And, I want to make you guys part of our movement. I want you to share in our oaths, to share in our Hippocratic tradition, and to enlist all of your employees and all of your people in perfecting the brand of American medicine. There's evidence, for example, that cancer recall is more effective with human contact than text message. That's some of the most fascinating work, and it's essential for those of you, in search engine optimization as a field, that your algorithms are one of the things that are not working for saving lives with cancer screening. Having, my assistant that I've trained at the elbow of one of my physicians, calling that patient and explaining why, is one of the things that makes cancer screening work. The evidence shows and the peer review shows that the human touch works better. And so having us listed, having our programs at Ken English listed and listable in where we're trying to, screen patients for cancer, where it's indicated, we can't get through, on Yahoo, on Bing, on Facebook, and we want to. We've been trying to. We need your help because we need to get the evidence of what works for getting that patient in for that physician. There's evidence, for example, that text messages are more useful than sending paper. We have an interfacing technology that works. We know that it saved lives. The peer review with the electronic medical record platform that we used, we were able to make measurable gains in cancer screening, something that's translatable to every town, every village, every state in America. That's work that we want to do, and that's communicating with patients in their preferred method of communication. The human contact is best, so recalling those employees back into the office with physicians where they belong. That's the first piece of work. That's work that needs to be done in Ohio, in Michigan, in Pennsylvania. Those are 3 states that had large concentration of healthcare providers that had resources taken away from physicians, and we want to move those resources back at the physician's elbow and save lives. We want you to join us in that. It's part of Leading Expect. We want to have those patients that prefer text message to be able to receive a text message that interfaces, as part of 10STEM, part of the Kent English movement. 10STEM, is our movement for, a medical search engine, one that's overseen by medical science, by medical professions, by medical professionals. We know that fundamentally will be more successful than having it done by outside the medical industry. We have a board of folks that are willing to help with that. We have trade associations that will help with that. We know that Leading Expect includes personal contact with patients to save lives, text contact with patients to save lives, and mail, using sending mail to patients. And we've been remarkably successful at that with our physician partners. And the success story of those projects can't get through to the media, which is part of what inspired me to go old style and start Ken English. So we can report on the everyday successes of American physicians in the language of English. Leading Expect is a transitive verb including possibilities. John Kennedy warned that aerospace technology such as satellites, cell phones, for example, must be guided. In his words, because those technologies don't have a morality of their own. This happens to be extraordinarily true in the technology of mobile phones, smartphones, machine learning, social media. Is that not only do those technologies not have a soul and not have a mind of their own, but don't have a morality of their own. Over this period of time, over the last 30 years or so, our colleges and universities lost the humanities, lost that perspective. My mother's father happened to have been a humanities professor, where that is the origin of this field, morality. Morality is a real thing. There is a real right and wrong. When life expectancy is declining, Americans, loyal Americans, need to drop everything and see what are the things that we're doing that's causing life expectancy to decline. Machine learning is one of the top ones. Machine learning that does not use human heuristics, attached to a medical sect, a qualifying medical sect, attached to a physician license. I know we can change this forever for the better. It takes a public relations risk off of the technology companies to say, look, we're offering a medical sect where our employees are self-selecting what their personal values are. Our organization is embracing medical science. We're embracing a peer review panel to take a look at Bing searches, Facebook searches that result in Americans going from 98.6 degrees down to 72 degrees. And what's the system that's causing that? And that's part of what we're talking about today. Kent English is how we perfect the brand of American medicine by influencing positive change. Steve Jobs is an individual that isn't with us anymore. Steve Jobs is the person we didn't reach fast enough to to free him of cancer. He envisioned a personalized brand of phone, iPod, internet in a single device. That was hailed by the market as category killing. The wrinkle with the smartphone, and Steve's not with us. We're not saying things to disparage him or his loved ones. Because bless you guys. But the smartphone is implicated in part of this decrease in life expectancy. It's something that we need to get U.S. governors ahead of. We need to get other technology companies in front of it. Because, we can do better, basically, with oath professionals. As quality as folks are at Apple, they don't take an oath. They don't take any kind of Hippocratic oath. They should. If you look at even the non-medical practice companies that have oath professionals, Medtronic is one you can point to, where they offer a medallion to their new employees as a standard, of living their mission every day. That's one of the reasons why you see Medtronic performing well compared to its peers. That's why you see Medtronic performing well, is it's oathed professionals, it's medallioned professionals. We can help implement that program at Google, at Yahoo, at Bing, at Facebook, at Apple. We know that perfecting the brand of American medicine can be central in that. The book is on sale